Unlock the secrets of franchising success with the Franchise Life podcast. Hosted by Stacey Shannon. Join us for expert insights, success stories, and practical tips every week. Subscribe now and take your franchise journey to the next level.
Hello and welcome to the Franchise Life. Today I have Courtney Ruppert with Bumblebee Blinds and Horsepower Brands. Welcome, Courtney.
Hi, Stacey. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well. All right. So, huge fan of Horsepower Brands, all of the brands, but I'm excited to dive into Bumblebee Blinds today. So, just a quick highlight, Bumblebee was established in 2022. You currently have 230 territories sold to date, which comprise approximately 70 owners throughout the United States. So congratulations on that. That is significant growth just in a 2-year period.
Yeah, we have definitely been very busy. I cannot take all the credit. We have a really great brand support team or coaching team behind Bumblebee. And then obviously great consultants like you that have been loving the brand. And so, yeah, it's been a very busy couple of years for sure.
Awesome. Well, why don't we just dive right in? So, Courtney, give us a high-level overview of Bumblebee Blinds and the service and products that you provide.
So Bumblebee Blinds is a specialty window treatment franchise. We specialize in interior and exterior window treatments. We are a B2B and a B2C concept, so we do focus on residential and commercial work. And some of the core differentiators I would say with Bumblebee is we have a digital sales process that is incredibly effective. So we have a very high close ratio from that digital sales process on an iPad, and I can talk to you a little bit more about that later. And then we do have a really nice lineup of interior product, and I can go through that with you, but also a lot of people don't realize we offer exterior solutions like privacy screens, weather protection, insect protection. We can do 4-season rooms. And again, we're pretty intentional with our territories that we want to make sure that we have residential and commercial pockets in our territories. We focus on new construction as well as remodel opportunities in the markets that we go into.
So what would you say the split is in the profile, just on an average between B2C and B2B?
Yeah. So when our owners launch, I would say it's kind of an 80-20 split. So 80% residential, 20% commercial. But then as we watch the owners go more live and get more in their market and, get their team put together and scale their business, that number typically evens out to maybe 60-40 or even 50-50. So again, within that first, I would say 60 to 90 days, it's mostly going to be residential work. But it is certainly not uncommon for us to have an owner get a pretty nice commercial job within that 90-day window. And that's just kind of what starts to really unfold into the commercial side of the business. So again, as they're scaling, especially in that first 12 to maybe 24 months, those numbers do even out to closer to like 60-40 or 50-50 from a residential and commercial percentage perspective.
No, I do love that. I love any brand that, is able to service both B2B and B2C. And, this product offering is it's a need product, which is also very attractive to many investors. So let me ask you this is, when I have presented a blind concept in the past, some candidates, the very first thing they'll say to me is, this seems like a saturated market or very competitive. So how would you talk a prospect through that?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So one of the things we really like about the window treatment space is the level of difficulty that we have in window treatment. So I always try to say to people, this is not rocket science, but it's also not the easiest thing that you'll do as a homeowner or business owner if this is something you're going to try to do yourself. I would say specifically, probably the most important thing to kind of that holds people back from trying to do this themselves is the measurement side. Because at the end of the day, this is a custom measurement. If you're off by a sixth or a fourth of an inch, you could go order $10,000 in product that is the wrong size. And so because of it's custom measured, we do find that most of consumers look at it, kind of maybe attempt to fiddle around with it a little bit themselves, and then kind of get into it and realize, I don't 100% know what I'm doing. And that's where they will contact a local window treatment company to come in and help them out. Another really important thing to remember is that in new construction sites, most contractors, and it's the majority of them, do not put window treatments on new construction sites. So we are a heavy, almost third-party referral source for contractors as they're building out new construction properties. And so again, there's a whole plethora of things that get done on a new construction site. Window treatments isn't one of them. The contractor recognizes there's some nuance on the measurement side of it. And also that's typically custom tailored to, what is that homeowner, or what is their style? What is their preference when it comes to window treatment? So there's a huge organic opportunity in the window treatment space. And we coach our franchisees a lot on that. So I would say for those two reasons, because it's a custom measurement, and you've really got to have solid technology and have a really solid measurement tool in place. As well as the fact that new construction does not come with window treatments, it really does drive, I would say, the consumer demand side. And so, I always try to tell people we're not really intimidated when we go into markets if there's a lot of competition. And in fact, we kind of look at it the opposite way, in the sense that that means there's probably pretty good market share for what we're offering the consumer there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, competition can be a really good thing for many businesses. So it's not always something to shy away from. So you've mentioned this, technology and an iPad being able to assist you. So can you talk through the technology aspect of the business and how that benefits a franchise owner and also from a customer standpoint?
Yeah. So I think horsepower, before Bumblebee was even where it is today, before we even launched into development, I think they did a really amazing job of creating a digital sales process that we call them design consultants, or you could call them a sales manager, follows as they're working with homeowners and business owners. And so what we find is the window treatment customer has a very high aptitude to purchase. You just have to be able to answer all their questions almost in real time. And so it was kind of a pairing of, the buying habits of this customer and understanding their decision-making process, and then pairing that with a digital sales process that basically walks them through every single step of, what is my project going to look like? What's the quantities, kind of going through all of that. So I would say that out of all the industries that I've worked in, the window treatment industry was one of the best to create that process. We have a visualizer tool. We have a laser tool that syncs to the iPad, so we can take those accurate measurements and save all that data in the CRM under the customer's profile. We've got customer financing built into the digital sales process. And so when you look at the close ratio of Bumblebee, like when I got put on Bumblebee blinds and I was looking at the close ratios of the franchisees, I was like, there's no way that it has this close ratio. But as we see franchisees launching, they have a very high close ratio. Our item 19 shows a 70% close ratio. We have owners that are 60%. We also have some owners that are 80%. So it really feels like a home run in the close ratio, both in, I think, horsepower identified. This customer has a really high aptitude to purchase. We've just got to be able, we kind of call it the one-day close philosophy. So most of our design consultants are 2 hours, or consultations, should I say, are 2 hours. And really that digital sales process pretty much answers every single question they'd want to get answered about their project. Again, with the visualizer tool, the laser tool, customer financing, and then essentially we're booking the job on the spot. We evaluate close ratio. So if I were to personally go to 10 houses and I booked within a 2-hour window, 7 of the 10, I would have a 70% close ratio. And that's kind of how we evaluate that number. So I think it's a combination of the window treatment industry and the way that buyer, kind of the buying habit of the way that buyer thinks, and then pairing that with this very streamlined digital sales process. We do have back-end reporting, so our franchisees can literally see how long our designers are spending on each slide. So that way, if we do have a designer that's a little bit lower in that percentage, it offers some coaching opportunities to kind of coach and mentor them on boosting a close ratio if needed. But that is certainly one of the very attractive and exciting parts of the business for sure.
For anybody that loves technology, then this would be again, a really attractive business model because in getting those metrics or those KPIs, that only helps you streamline and run your business more efficient. So I love that. So the visualizer tool that you mentioned, I mean, okay, so I'm sitting here, I'm in a sunroom, I'm overlooking our pool, a golf course. I have 3 sets of sliders. And we had new hurricane-proof windows. I'm in the Palm Beach area, put in several months ago. I have not put any window coverings on yet because I'm so undecided about what I want to do. So this visualizer tool, does it allow for any product that I were interested in exploring for it to be shown in my space, if that makes sense?
Yep, so we can capture your space and kind of upload different product options for you in your exact space at your property. So your home or obviously in the business. There's a variety of kind of stock card samples so like if you were just trying to go through and look at stock card samples, and then there's obviously another option there where we could actually upload like your living room, your kitchen, and kind of do it that way as well. One thing I will add to that is we have a partnership with Ulta Window Fashions, and they are actually owned by Hunter Douglas. So we have a very great contract with Ulta Window Fashions. I think we have one of the lowest, if not the lowest, negotiated cost of goods with Ulta Window Fashions. So Bumblebee franchisees get access to Hunter Douglas quality product through Ulta, and I will say that Ulta just did a really cool kind of product update. So they came out, and it just has come out within the last month or two, a whole new product line. And I personally just bought a bunch of new window treatments utilizing the Ulta product to get Hunter Douglas quality product for my house. And I was going through, and I had like 14 different samples out, and I was like, okay, which one? Because there's so many really, really pretty options within what they've just launched. So there's a whole new kind of like updated, really modern, fun lineup that they've come out with that's really, really cool. So, but yeah, all of that, you can do different visualizer tool options to kind of see what it would look like as well.
Very nice. And so, do you guys have on the websites, do you have these different products listed, or is that part of the design consultation where you get insight into that?
So it's going to be a little bit of both. It's going to be obviously going to be located on the Bumblebee page, as well as going to the properties and having some sample books and having the visualizer tool piece of it as well. So I would say kind of a combination of both. Typically, once a customer is kind of narrowed down to maybe like their top maybe 3 to 5 products that they want to select, that's where those sample books can come in, because then they can literally look and touch and feel the product. But again, utilizing technology, it's great because if you want to get more of an idea that way, you can utilize the technology. And then again, the sample books bring in more of that real life, like touch, feel, all that stuff to really kind of finalize the selection.
And I'm definitely a touch feel type person, especially when it comes to my home and the products and materials that I bring into it. All right. So you've touched a lot on the technology, but you also really, emphasize the importance of the measurement and how homeowners or even GCs are not comfortable doing that aspect of it. So that begs the question, what type of personnel do you need, and what type of background do they have to be effective in, say, a design role?
So the design consultant position is truly a sales position. And I would say that the designers that we have come from all walks of life. The biggest and probably most important component of that role is that ultimately you are going into people's homes and into people's businesses. So you're in a pretty, intimate private space with these potential customers. And so I think just the ability to make people feel comfortable, that's probably one of the biggest attributes to a successful design consultant. We don't necessarily need you don't need to have a background in window treatments per se. And in fact, I would say that, again, just being able to make people feel comfortable, being friendly, those are actually going to probably make you a more successful design consultant than necessarily having to come with a background, extensive background in window treatments. Of course, we have design consultants that do have a background in either interior design or window treatments, but that's not necessarily a requirement. So because it is such a personal experience with homeowners and business owners, and that's what we really try to focus on. Obviously with Horsepower, we have Z University, which is an online course series that our owners and their employees get access to. We also, the final step in onboarding with us is we have what we call Academy, which is a Monday through Friday live hands-on training with the entire Bumblebee team, where they literally go rent out like Airbnbs and Verbos and actually practice and do live hands-on repetition and experience with these employees to give them the repetition and exposure. And then, of course, we have franchise business success coaches that are assigned to territories and are actively working with the owners in that regard. So there is obviously the initial training as well as ongoing training. Another thing that I think that is really cool about the window treatment industry is there's a lot of really nice manufacturers in the window treatment industry that are actually United States based. And it's not required, but you can, in addition to all the training you get with Bumblebee, you can send your employees out to a lot of these facilities. These are very healthy manufacturing companies. And if you wanted to, of course, as an owner, it's up to you, but you can send your employees out to a lot of these facilities for additional kind of advanced certification. So let's say you hired an employee, you have them go through all the Bumblebee University training, maybe have them do Academy with you. You can actually send them also out to some of the headquarter facilities for the manufacturing facilities to get additional extra kind of training certifications. And again, that's not required, but it is kind of nice that the higher quality manufacturers are more North American based. So it, from a travel perspective, it's pretty attainable to be able to do that with your employees if you wanted to do that.
Yeah, and all that I know it would be a nice to have. It's not a must have, but just being able to gain that deeper knowledge even can only serve the brand, and the franchise owner better. So you had mentioned, and I don't want to gloss over this, but you had mentioned a success coach or a business coach. Can you dive into really, at the end of the day, the value of that and what it means to a new owner?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that Bumblebee has done a phenomenal job of hiring some really intelligent people when it comes to having a background in window treatments. One of our core values at Horsepower Brands is intellectual capital. And I think they've done an extraordinary job of hiring people that have an extensive amount of experience in window treatments. And that is also shown to be true for the franchise business success coaches or the franchise business coaches that exist with Bumblebee Blinds. So these are coaches that are assigned typically to regions. In the case of like Texas, as an example, we just went ahead and hired a franchise business coach that literally lives and resides in Dallas. So sometimes when we have a lot of owners in one area, we'll just, instead of having them reside out of our Omaha, Nebraska headquarters, we'll have a coach that more is geographically located directly where those owners are. So that's kind of an example of one way they've managed that. But I think it's nonetheless really great that intellectual capital is one of the probably the biggest pieces, not the only piece, but one of the pieces for sure that we look at when we're making those hires for our franchise business coaches. So that way our franchisees are getting access to people that do have, several years of experience in the window treatment industry. And so, of course, that coaching is just very fine-tuned. There's a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience that goes into that. Our director of sales, our director of operations, all those people have a lot of experience in the window treatment space. And I think it just helps franchisees to get more information faster, with the intellectual capital, the people that we typically recruit and hire to be on the back end side of the team. I have personally, obviously, as this brand has grown, our team has grown, so we have one of the more robust teams, because as we've grown as a brand, we want to make sure that we have the resources at the home office and at the headquarters, as well as obviously, like I said, the Dallas coach, to kind of make sure that we have the resources for the franchisees that we have brought on to become franchise partners with us.
And those coaches will go on site. You said sometimes, like in the Dallas area, they're co-located, but they'll be on site and they can work hand in hand. And I know earlier you also mentioned that if a design consultant was, struggling a little bit with their close ratio, then that's also an area that those coaches will step in and help provide some guidance and additional learning.
Yeah. And one thing I think that is really nice about what Horsepower does is we're a very data-driven company, and all of that is articulated into our franchisee dashboard. So we have peer-to-peer benchmarking. Obviously, your franchise business coach is going to be talking to you about, where you're at in that peer-to-peer benchmarking. So it's really hard to not be able to identify the areas of your business that you're really growing and thriving in, and then maybe the areas that we need to kind of coach and improve on. And so that's really that relationship and partnership between the franchisee and the franchise business coaches, articulating, obviously the franchisee dashboard shows that, but then that coach is going to come in and provide additional advice, best practices, those types of things to obviously clap for the things that are going well, and then coach on the areas where maybe there are improvement or pieces that we want to find improvement on.
Yeah, I think this is just, as I've grown in the franchise industry, this is one role that if a brand offers franchise business coaches, I think it is such an invaluable role to a new franchise owner. I'm a franchise owner myself in a B2B brand. I would have loved to have had a business coach that would have come on site, would have, walked through a couple installs with me initially. That didn't happen, but I mean, to me, it's just invaluable, especially when I hear of this type of or level of support. All right. With that said, we've talked about horsepower has been mentioned multiple times. So just can you share with our listeners the relationship between horsepower brands and Bumble blinds, and also the support, of course, of horsepower?
Yeah, so I always think of Horsepower as kind of our parent company. It is an umbrella entity that sits over all 9 of our brands. And we have headquartered employees as well as a full C-suite executive team that is directly affiliated with that parent company. So their goal is to ensure that what is kind of getting fed into each of our 9 brands, whether it be systems and processes or the technology that we choose to use, or new initiatives, tech platforms, software platforms, that all of that is in the best interest of our franchisees. So they kind of sit over all 9 of our brands. We have a fleet of Z services that are a part of that system and process that feeds into our 9 brands. So things like Z Recruit for recruiting. We've got Z Marketing, which is our marketing team. Z Contact, which is like call center support. So the Z services essentially fill into or filter into each of our 9 brands. And then each brand is essentially independently staffed as if it were its own entity, which essentially it is. So like with Bumblebee, even though we have all the Z services as well as a C-suite team with Horsepower that's kind of integrating systems and processes and helping to improve the efficiency of our franchisee experience, then we have a brand team, and those people are directly working on the brand. So again, for Bumblebee, we've got director of operations, director of sales, kind of a full team that is directly allocated, hired, and employed by Bumblebee Blinds itself. So you're kind of getting like a multi-layered org chart from that perspective. I think the unique thing about it is it allows for kind of multiple layers of viewership from that perspective. So you've got people that are really granular on the brand, that are directly hired to work on the brand and are making decisions every day from that perspective. But then you have other people that are kind of looking at the brand more from a lens perspective, and then able to provide coaching or advice to the brand team based on what they're seeing from that perspective. So it is kind of that multi-layered org chart, which I think provides a lot of, again, more intellectual capital and just different perspectives to make sure that we're trying to obviously do the best job we can to support franchisees, and lots of different ways that we can kind of look at it from that way. So that is essentially the org chart between, I guess, Bumblebee and then Horsepower as a parent company to us.
Yeah, I have nothing but the utmost respect for Horsepower Brands as a whole. I mean, the level of support that across from the recruitment to the marketing to fleet, all of that is pretty hard to compete with in this industry. So, all right. So we've talked a lot about the brand, what it is. So this is a home-based business model, correct? So you really, for someone that is looking at, if you're not an owner-operator, a semi-passive owner would be looking at hiring 2 or 3 employees from the onset. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. So our semi-involved owners, so if you're not able to be a full owner operator, semi-involved owners, we would want you to start with the general manager, which is essentially like your operational leader, and then a design consultant, which is essentially your sales manager. We feel strongly that both of those roles are needed if you're not able to be, full time in the business. We also kind of notate it's semi-involved. So obviously that first 12 months, even if you're not full time in the business, it's still, you're still going to be busy, right? Because you're essentially coaching and mentoring those leaders that you've put in place. So you would essentially, for semi-involved, you'd start with 2 W-2 employees, then you start with 1 1099 installer. So that is how the whole window treatment industry is set up, is most of your installers are 1099. You do have the option, you can put them on W-2 if you want to, but it just kind of goes back to the old adage of if it's not broke, why fix it? So most of your window treatment installers are 1099. And then in the owner operator, what I love about the owner operator side of it is, again, we have like this operational leader and we have a sales leader. We call them, again, that design consultant and then kind of a general manager. So if you are able to be an owner operator, we love that, because then you can pick which of the skill sets you are passionate about or maybe have a background in. So if I have a background in sales, I can go be that design consultant. And we have owners that take that sales role and they just go out and they crush it. And then we've got obviously the owner operator side of it, where if more your background is operations, then you can take on that operations role and really own that role. And then you're hiring a design consultant or kind of a salesperson to work that. And so in that org chart, you would basically start with 1 W-2 employee, and then you're hiring, same thing, a 1099 installer to get started. One really nice thing about the window treatment industry is, I always say this is the most time efficient or labor efficient model. So our consultations take about 2 hours. And again, based on the close ratio I was sharing with you, we can do a lot of volume typically in revenue with just essentially 1 design consultant, because it's only about 2 hours from a consultation perspective. And then that close ratio is typically pretty good. And then same thing on the installation side. Yes, we're going to have our bigger jobs that take a little bit longer, but your average 2-story residential house is about 2 hours from start to finish. So it is very labor efficient. You can get a lot of work done with a pretty lean team. And then again, you've got a franchise business coach there kind of looking at your metrics, looking at your KPIs and your revenue trajectory. And they're going to be coaching you on when you would need to add in additional people as you're scaling and growing your business.
That is fantastic. So what would you say, like across the board, what are like the top 3 attributes that you look for in a new franchise owner?
Yeah, so I think the big thing that we look for in a franchise owner is somebody that gets really excited about being involved in their community. When you pull our top 5 new franchisees, whether they're owner operator or they're semi-involved. These are people that are out there and are involved in representing the brand, talking to people about the brand, coaching and mentoring their team, whether they're owner operator or semi-involved, they're involved, right? And so the really unique part about window treatments, and I hope I didn't just freeze on you, but the really unique part about window treatments is there's a large organic opportunity. So we have owners that have done a significant amount of revenue with pretty minimal marketing spend, because again, if you can go out and create relationships with contractors, interior designers, and realtors, all of those people are willing to graciously give you free leads, 100% free. They typically spend more money with you and they close at a really, really high rate. And so our owners that are out there creating those relationships, I mean, they can have a pretty minimal marketing spend, and yet they're generating a lot of revenue with a very high close ratio and a pretty, a nice average ticket, because those organics are just, they are like the bread and butter of our business. I'm not saying that we don't spend money on digital ads or we don't use social media, because we do, but we also recognize there's a large organic opportunity. And typically our owners that are making a commitment, again, whether it's in that owner operator or semi-involved model, to go out and really capture those organic leads, they're doing, their trajectory, their revenue, their close ratio, their average ticket. It's very easy to see the owners that are capturing that. So again, just kind of understanding that in window treatments, there is a large organic opportunity. And the owners that typically go out and capture those opportunities typically have lower fixed marketing costs and then generate more revenue. If you're in a position where you cannot be an owner operator, maybe you want to be, but you've got to keep a corporate America job, right? Or, you're off ramping for corporate America, but you're committed for the next 6 months to a year. I think there's a couple of things. One, being super strategic with your hiring and understanding that you're filling roles of people that are ultimately a reflection of you as an owner. So being very strategic from that perspective. And I think even more so, like if you have a background in leadership or you have a background in managing employees, that's even more helpful, because if you're not able to be an owner operator, you really want to be a good mentor and a good coach to those employees that are ultimately the reflection of you and are running your business for you, essentially. We've had some owners that do profit sharing and have done well with profit sharing. So depending, again, I always say it depends on what your corporate America job is, right? So there's a difference between somebody that works 70 hours a week and somebody that works 20 or 30. And so depending on what your commitment is, that kind of depends also on what you're going to need out of your employees from that perspective. But again, we know there's a massive organic opportunity that, again, $0 out of your pocket for marketing, close at a high rate, spend more money, and then go tell all their friends and family about you. And so we're always coaching owners on working those organic opportunities, just because there's so much organic opportunity. It almost is the residual revenue source of our model.
Yeah, and you just touched on one of the beautiful things about a model like this is even it's very referral based from your existing customer base. So, all right, on a last note, Courtney, let's talk money. So the total investment for a single location with Bumblebee Blinds is around $164,000 to $196,000. What can you share with us as far as the ROI on this business, what your item 19 in the franchise disclosure document shows?
Yeah, so our item 19 is currently our Omaha franchisee, and he is in Omaha, Nebraska, and that shows about 1.5 million for his location. His close ratio is 70% and his average ticket's about 4,500. The other really nice thing about Bumblebee Blinds is obviously we have had a lot of franchisees join our franchisee community. So all the candidates through the discovery process do get an open opportunity to talk to franchisees. And so yes, we have kind of our Omaha franchisee there, But because we've been so active in franchisee placements over the last 2 years, we have a different franchisee every Tuesday at 4 Central, 5 Eastern that prospective candidates can talk to. And, we've got owner operators, semi-involved owners. We have some owners running it out of their home. We have some owners that have chosen to get an office space. So we also try to, through those validation calls, give people the opportunity to understand some of the options, because there are some options that owners can kind of pick and choose from of what's going to be best for them from, their specific circumstances or their territory, et cetera. So the item 19 is a great reference point. And then another great reference point is obviously just as the candidate gets going in the discovery process, attending some of those franchisee leadership calls as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That validation stage is, in my opinion, one of the most important of the entire process. All right, Courtney. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been so much fun diving into Bumblebee Blinds. I do truly think this is an exciting brand. I love the technology aspect of it and all of the metrics that Horsepower has enabled the owners to be able to track. So thanks again. For anybody that is interested in learning more about Bumblebee Blinds, please feel free to reach out to me at Stacy@FusionFranchising.com. Thanks and have a great day.
Thanks for listening. Subscribe for more on the franchise life.